Alrighty, we are live, and I think especially today we have to wait for the viewer count to stabilize with this Cloudflare
Yeah,
outage that we're that we're
what a
seeing.
great way to wake up.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's got to be one of those things, especially for you, that maybe
Yeah.
there was some initial fear, like, okay, is today going to be one of those crazy days?
Mhm.
I know a lot of web services were down, but any case, we're this is a new format for both myself and then I believe Shaughnessy, this is your first LinkedIn Live, correct?
LinkedIn Live.
Okay,
Yep.
so you've now just by default you've elevated me to the status of a veteran at these live streams.
Yeah.
But the whole goal for today is I found these to be very cool, fascinating conversations. I've done about 6 or 7 of them so far on LinkedIn, and the entire goal for this is to be an organic conversation. I'm seeking out the best of the best in the legal tech industry, and the whole goal is to discuss topics that are relevant today and tomorrow. So, of course, today the topic is AI's relevance and the effects that it's been having on the legal profession, both today and
Mhm.
in the future. So, for those of you who don't know, my name is Jay McAllister. I'm the CEO of Paragon Tech. We are a legal tech consultancy, and we focus on helping law firms to develop the best strategy behind using technology to become more efficient, of course, by extension, profitable. And I am joined by the one and the only Shaunesy Dyer. She heads up the channel partnerships, or she's the channel partnership manager at Spellbook, which is sort of an interesting tie-in today in Spellbook being one of the early entrants into the legal tech AI space.
Mhm.
So Shaughnessy and I have an extensive relationship. We've known each other for several years. Shaughnessy sort of got me involved, in a lot of the public speaking and speaking engagements that I participate in, just
Mhm.
by proxy of she I guess she has a good radar for character. At least I'd like to think so, right? So I do have so here's the format for today. It's going to be a 20-minute live. We do have specific areas and topics that I've prepared just to keep us on track, because as Shaughnessy knows, and maybe some of you know as well, I can tend to wander. So we do have a structure. We're going to talk about sort of the current state of AI, the brief history of where we were at versus where we're at now, and then we'll sort of go into some more nuanced topics surrounding how legal practitioners are or are not embracing using this technology. So first, before we dive in, I mean, Shaughnessy, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm great. It's kind of gray here. I'm in Calgary up in Canada. And so normally we see sunshine up in Canada and in Calgary specifically, 300 days of sunshine. But I'm excited about today.
Yeah, we're similar out here, Chicago, gray skies, but this is what we sign up for. For some reason, we all have this psychosis where every year the first snow, which was last week, by the way, for us, we're all wondering like, when does it snow in November? And the reality is, it always snows in November. We just, the Chicago summers, you can't beat them. You've been here in the summer, so you know how that goes.
Yes. One of my favorite cities.
Yeah. So let's talk about sort of AI. I have some thoughts on the current AI landscape. Like I mentioned, the reason why I was interested in talking with you is just one, you are a rock star in the legal space. You had a long career at Clio before you moved over to Spellbook, and you know there's an interesting tie-in there. Their Spellbook was one of the first entrants into the sort of LLM based AI technology companies in the legal space, particularly.
Mhm.
Like, legal tends to be particularly suitable for AI because, like, when you think about it, at the end of the day, law firms, lawyers, you are taking information, documents, and you're analyzing them, making modifications to those, and then outputting those results, right? Whether that be creating legal arguments, contracts, pleadings, briefs, things like that. And it just so happens AI tends to be really good at taking text-based information. And now, of course, as we're moving forward into the future, image-based, video-based, of course, with the newest platforms now, there's entire social media tools that generate AI content.
Mhm.
So I was really hoping, when you were on the pursuit of what's next after Clio, I was hoping you would wind up somewhere really cool.
Yeah.
So when you told me that you had winded up at Spellbook, it was something that made me I've referenced them many times. They actually winded up on our list of every year we rank our favorite AI applications. Spellbook winded up on our list, and not only were they on the list, they were number one on our list. No relation to you. It's just we're skeptics by nature, so we like to dive in, and we're always looking for the angle, but we're also looking at for what are the downsides or disadvantages of the platform.
Mhm.
And we thought that Spellbook represented a really well rounded out platform. So glad that we can sort of, pick up the conversation here.
Mhm.
So, in relation to, I think it's interesting because the clients that you obviously have you have access to a wide range of clients, from small to solo, boutiques to mid market firms, maybe even some enterprise clients. So, talk to me about like the overall sentiment, because I feel like this is an area that is sort of nebulous for many. Like there's a lot of speculation about what the overall level of comfort, proficiency with these AI platforms might be. So, like from your perspective, what do you think that is in the minds of the professionals that you get to interact with?
Yeah. So one thing that we're noticing is that size does not matter for who is adopting AI and who is curious about AI. We're seeing it across the board from solos and small firms all the way up to large enterprise organizations who have in-house legal counsels. And I think the reason for that is because AI is so powerful and it really does reduce that admin task, that repeatable mundane task that not every lawyer likes to use and do. And so finding ways for them to get more time back in their day is a key part of every lawyer's journey. And it's something that stood out to me when I was at Clio, and it's something that has stood out to me even here at Spellbook. And the speed of which lawyers are now able to accomplish things with AI is just incredible. And so I think there's just a lot of curiosity from the legal industry in particular around AI and how they can use it in their everyday workflows.
So, okay, I think I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I can't help but do it because you prompted an interesting topic here, which is that you mentioned the word curiosity.
Mhm.
Curiosity. Now, I don't know, like to me, that word is very accurate. What I've seen, I mean, we work primarily with mid market firms. We've got some small solos and boutiques, but primarily we're working with firms in this sort of 10 to 50 to 65 space. And there's been a large appetite for AI applications. Like I would say in the last probably year, that's probably increased to its height. Um, maybe 2 years you could argue, but my point here is that there seems to be a great deal of interest, but there doesn't seem to be a great deal of commitment to sort of a unifying strategy for moving forward using AI. Like it doesn't seem to me that many of the firms that I interface with, they don't necessarily have a strategy in place for identifying the largest constraints within their legal service delivery model and then applying AI towards. So, and I know there was I'm going to reference I think it was McKinsey report, the State of AI report for 2025. No, I'm sorry. It was the MIT report by similar title, where they found that 95%, and this is across all industries, so this isn't specific to legal, but they found that 95% of AI implementations did not meet the critical success criteria, right? And they also, in that McKinsey report, they found that 77% of law firms specifically are in the piloting phase with AI, meaning they haven't scaled it out across the organization. They're sort of testing it within a small, either a practice group or a subcommittee within the firm before rolling it out largely. So, you know, how do those numbers sit with you when it comes to, like, I guess what do you think the factors that might be contributing to that either hesitation to roll out these tools globally across the firm, or and then by extension just the relative lack of those success criteria, which as defined in the MIT report, they simply said the success criteria meant that whatever metrics that the firm decided to measure their implementation on, which has largely been efficiency related, meaning we can produce X amount of work product in a smaller amount of time than it previously took. Firms weren't meeting those metrics. So, how do you think these metrics jive with what you see on a day to day?
I think it's accurate. Part of that is because AI is in this world of unknowing right now. we can't predict necessarily what is going to happen with AI. And then the other aspect of it is there's just so much availability. And so a lot of lawyers are getting not necessarily confused, but unsure. There's just no certainty around where they should start with AI and how they should adopt it into their practice. And I think the smaller firms probably feel this overwhelming amount of uncertainty compared to larger firms who can employ large consulting groups that can help teach them where they should start and give them the framework and the tools that they need to get started. And you're spot on. These larger firms, specifically in the mid market and enterprise space, are piloting it out and they're trying to figure out what tools work best for their needs and before they bring it on to all of the other firms or lawyers globally. And so it's definitely an accurate statement right now. That hesitancy is, I think, across every industry. This is not just with law firms because we really don't know the power of AI in a global scale, and we haven't harnessed necessarily what that path looks like for AI.
Right. And I think a lot of it also comes down to, I mean, if we think back to 2022, fall of 22, when ChatGPT, obviously that's the one everyone knows, first hit the market. I believe it was September, which, fun fact, I was doing a little research and I found out that, no, I'm sorry, I think ChatGPT was November, and which was when they released their public beta. But when I was doing some research, I found that Spellbook was actually released in September of the same year. So
Mhm.
it looks to me, from everything that I could see, that Spellbook actually preceded the public beta version of, or the public access version of ChatGPT. But if you think back to this time period, it's interesting because many individuals were fascinated with the sheer amount of possibilities that generative AI could bring to the marketplace. Right? It's like I think we all have a natural fascination with something that can approximate the sort of the activities and the behaviors of a human being. And when you're interfacing with these large language models, especially today as we're on, Gemini 2.5 Flash and GPT 5.1, they do operate in a way that is almost indistinguishable from a human, right? From if you were to just perform the Turing test. So it's fascinating because I think many firms get allured by the possibilities, the endless possibilities, and I think they stray away from actually understanding what would create a meaningful benefit from their firm. And I would imagine that even as a sort of a as a platform, as an AI platform, those clients who are unsure about the strategy forward, they don't necessarily make the stickiest clients, because what they wind up doing is implementing the tool and not seeing, since they didn't have success criteria built from the beginning, there's
Mhm.
no way to actually become successful using the tool. So then it sits on the shelf, and then ultimately they become detractors and think, oh, this stuff doesn't work, or this doesn't have a use case. So I think your point to the awareness about how to apply it, the training, there's so much shadow AI usage within firms with individuals who are using AI, and not necessarily a firm sanctioned AI, but they're using ChatGPT on their personal accounts, or they're using other tools that they found. And without that guidance and that structure around how do we leverage this as a firm to actually create those meaningful results, it becomes just a sea of noise. You can get easily lost in it.
Yeah. And I think it's important to also note that if you are a tech forward firm and you're not adopting AI today, you can also look inward. Like find an AI champion, someone who has championed all of your other projects and tools and whatnot, and start small. It doesn't have to be this big overwhelming project. And I think that's where a lot of lawyers and law firms are getting stuck, is that they think it has to be this overhaul of all of their workflows because they just don't know what it's capable of. But if we take Spellbook as a perfect example here, redlining, just simple, something that a contract lawyer has to do every day for hours on end. How can this make my life simpler? And when you employ something like Spellbook into your daily practice and have something that used to take you maybe 5 hours take less than 30 minutes, it changes everything for you. And so as you continue to bring those new workflows into your day to day as a lawyer, I think you're going to start to see more of the ways that you can use AI and start thinking, oh, if I can do it with this, what else can I do it with? Oh, I can maybe do it with this. And there's small ways that this is already happening, that you might not even notice. Smart suggestions with your email. If you're using Copilot or Gemini right now with Google or Microsoft, there are a lot of subtle ways that AI is being brought into the platforms. Um, Email suggestions, like I use the email suggestions with Google's Gemini all the time on what I should respond to, and it's amazing. Like, it's taken a lot of the work out of what I need to do so that I can get back to my inbox and clear it faster. And then I can get back to what I'm actually hired for, which is helping to create this partner program and to launch and build and scale a partner program that can introduce AI to more firms and help them become more efficient in their day to day. So I think it's such an interesting time for us in the legal space, but don't get overwhelmed and bogged down by the fact that AI can be used in so many components. Start small, find your AI champion. You don't necessarily have to have a whole new framework for how you do things, but think about the subtle ways that AI can make things better for you or easier for you. So maybe you have more time either for work or for home or for vacation or whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah. One of the frames that I found particularly useful is just to think about AI in the context of, does this improve the client experience or
Mm,
your individual firm member experiences?
yeah.
Right. Because then, like, it's easy to get lost in the novelty of some of the tools you see. I mean, there's thousands of platforms out there, and many firms just they attend a trade show, or they see something that seems fascinating, and they get absorbed by the novelty of it and implement it and realize that they're not actually meaningfully moving the firm forward.
Mhm.
So I think that's important. One thing that I wanted to ask you about was specifically in the context of, and this is something that my stance has evolved on over time. I've been pretty much for my entire legal tech career, I've been a big fan of centralized platforms. Um, you know, I've I've found over time that specifically when it comes to AI, this has actually changed for me. I'm actually, I would say in general, if I had to make paint in broad strokes, I'm actually more of a fan of AI, point solutions, particular applications that are built for a particular purpose, a singular task or set of tasks, rather than a generalist tool that looks to solve all of the challenges that a firm may face. So, you take tools like, for example, like Spellbook, or there's another platform, Mailmaestro, that we use in quite a few of our clients' email inbox environments to help with the response, the drafting, and there's tools like Hona that do the automatic cadences and follow up. Like, these tools, I find that serve a particular task and focus. I think they actually do a better job in many cases than sort of an overall universal tool. So I think, in my, if we're talking about where the legal AI landscape is going and how it's going to change the profession into the future, I think from one standpoint, I think we first need to understand how the models operate more intrinsically. Like, pretty much the prevailing sentiment is that these AI large language models operate in a black box context. We don't know exactly how they function. We've designed them. We can sometimes predict the output, but in the operations of these platforms, chaos theory takes over, and that's why you can have things like hallucination happen. It's just a sheer. It is just a reality of the technology. So I think to really move the profession forward, we need to have a better understanding of how these platforms function. Um, there was a I think it was the future of professionals report, I want to say. They were essentially breaking down sort of the way that large language models operate. They were doing it by sort of reverse engineering the steps and then analyzing at each stage to try and put together some sort of contextual map of how platforms work. So they use this exercise of creating rhyme schemes, right? And something that's fairly simple for us humans, they would give one word, Jack, and then they would see, if it could figure out pack, right? And essentially they would just build these complex poems, multi-syllabic poems, and they would go back and back. They would input the initial conditions, and they would take a look at each step of the engagement to see how it's ultimately understanding what you're asking it to do and then generating its output. And the interesting thing is they found that it tended to be good at activities like that, but activities that require, because this is essentially just fact recall, right? Just basic reasoning, but activities that required more in-depth levels of judgment. Those are the tasks that it found the language models tended to struggle with. And they tested all the frontier models, right? The GPT, Gemini, Grok, DeepSeek, and so on and so forth. So I think, there's that aspect of once we understand these platforms, we'll better be able to leverage them and better be able to determine activities that are suitable for those particular platforms. Because as the industry sits, many of the sort of AI platforms out there run on these foundational models as their sort of generational engine. So that's part one. And then
Mhm.
part two is I think we need to have some sort of collaboration and teamwork to create that. Like if we really want to create tools that move the legal profession forward, we need to create that ecosystem of tools where everything works together in a streamlined fashion, right? Reducing the redundant data entry that's currently needed. I mean, if you look at, most people have an iPhone in their pocket, I guess, at least in, US and North America. The reason Apple has been able to excel is because they've created this uh, tightly integrated ecosystem. They've taken all of these bespoke tools, if you will, the calculator, the phone. Yeah, remember when phones like used to be good at phones? Now that's like the worst thing that they do. Like you can't even hear someone on the phone. But they've taken camera, they've taken notes, they've taken all of these things that were already built. They didn't reinvent the wheel. They just packaged it in a way that took all of these disparate components and made it accessible to the average user. And now we've actually gotten rid of these additional items. Like I don't know anyone who owns a calculator. It's your phone. I don't know anyone who owns an alarm clock. It's your phone.
Yeah.
So I think with AI, the value of pretty much any platform lies in sort of the institutional knowledge, the data that tool houses, and ultimately the IP for how it's built and how it reasons and how the structure of how it generates its output. But I do think I would like to see more collaboration, specifically in the legal profession, to ensure that these tools work together in a way that's seamless, streamlined, and then actually allows the firm to leverage the data that they own in order to create their outputs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have a philosophy that you need to meet the lawyers where they're at. And, Spellbook is in Word, which is great. So we're meeting the lawyers where they're at and where they're spending a majority of their time. But I also think I'll push back slightly on that because I do think that you're right in the sense that you can have this um, variety of tools and each tool has its own benefit to it. And sometimes that's what works for you. And that's okay. And I think for now, in at least today's maybe year to next year, we're going to see that where a lot of people are just picking and choosing the tools that make sense for them and are still meeting them where they're at. Like, don't get me wrong, you can still have a tool that meets you where you're at in your workflows and day to day that will help you become faster because it's all about speed and accuracy. At the end of the day, for a lawyer, it's client expectations, and getting to back to your clients as quickly as you can is going to become the norm. I'll give you an example. The other day, I was calling a doctor to make an appointment, and who picks up the phone but an AI agent. And I rolled my eyes and was trying to find the way to bypass this AI agent. And it pretty much didn't let me. I still had to talk to the AI agent, and it was amazing. It was one of the best experiences that I've had. The language that they use is very similar to the language that I would hear from a receptionist at this doctor's office. They were able to answer my questions. They were able to get me booked with an appointment that was within a certain amount of time. The only thing that they didn't get right was my name, but I don't expect that from really anybody. I do have a pretty
Mm.
hard name to spell. But I think that this is one of those areas in law firms, doctor offices, and wherever where speed and accuracy is really going to matter the most. And so, for now, for those firms that are not really sure what they're going to do about AI, like just start somewhere. And you centralization will matter at some point, but right now, it's how are you being better than your competitors and how are you going to win over some of your competitors and make sure that your clients are happy at the end of the day. And speed, I think, is what is going to be the benchmark for that.
Absolutely, I would agree with you. I had an issue this morning where so all of my employees in my company, they're all eligible to get commission based on bringing in new business, regardless of whether they're sales or not. So one of my employees had brought in a new piece of business this month. and his payroll did not get processed properly, didn't include the commission. So of course, I knew about it right away, right? Because he told me, he's like, hey, Jay, there's a problem. Houston, we have a problem. So I go into my QuickBooks to reverse it, and I made the problem even larger. Now it's telling me, okay, there's going to be a 7-day approval. It's not a guaranteed thing. It might take the money out of my employee's bank account. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. So I'm like, okay, I just need to talk to someone at Intuit. I'm scrolling, I'm looking for the number. Where is the number? Can't find it. I'm in their chat. Please let me talk to someone, right? Like, I have this issue, and I'm someone who, operates a fairly fast moving corporation, and I just need that help. I need access to information in a timely manner. Now, and I think that when you translate that to the legal profession, many law firms are, they're high performing law firms. Speed is of the essence. When they have an issue, when they're dealing with a highly contested divorce with assets, and like, they don't have the time to have issues crop up into their day-to-day processes and wait for resolution. So I would agree, the ability to get answers quickly. Like, if there was some, AI chat that would allow me to just, tell me, oh, here's what you do, or even to sort of use an agentic approach and say, okay, we're going to reverse this on your behalf, and here's what we've done, and just make sure this is good before we actually perform those actions. Like, that would be critical to actually increasing my experience. I mean, I get, like, if they don't have, the human operators to be able to answer the phone, at least allow me to interface with something that can take action on my behalf and to get me an answer quickly. So I think, yeah, your point there with the speed. I mean, nowadays speed tends to be the differentiating factor between, a company A and B. Look at anything, any companies like, Amazon. What's their value prop? Fast. We'll get it to you, 2 days, same day. I mean, now they're talking about doing drone delivery and 30-minute deliveries for, essential items. You look at Uber, right? You used to have to wait for a taxi, hail the cab. Now you just go on your phone, type Uber, and then boom, you've got the taxis coming on. It's right there coming to you. Domino's, the pizza tracker app, and this is one that my friend Jordan Ostroff made me aware of. It's not necessarily the speed. It's not like you're getting the pizza faster, but it's creating the perception of speed by having a tracker that accurately tells you what stage that pizza, or if you want to use a legal context, your matter is in, and then providing updates like, hey, here it's going in the oven. Okay, it's being delivered. It's in the delivery truck. It's at your front door. Like, so creating the perception of speed, I think, is a huge differentiating factor. And it's one of the things that propels companies forward today. And I think many law firms are looking to take advantage of that as well, and to create that experience, that client experience.
Yeah.
So I know we're at the end of our time here today. So this is fascinating. And, I've been really enjoyed doing these live streams. I knew that our conversation was going to be packed to the gills. But, like, we didn't even get to like half of the scheduled stuff that we had to talk about, but yeah, but I think it's still valuable to provide the perspective. And I wanted to know from your end, what are you seeing, given that you're working on the forefront in an AI based legal tech company. So we'll have to do this again. Any final thoughts for anybody else watching?
No, I think we've hit the nail on the head here. Just give it a try. There's nothing to lose at this point. Start small, be practical, figure out what your fundamental values are when it comes to AI, and go from there.
Love it. Well said. And of course, to everyone else watching, we will see you in the next one. Take care.